Hey folks, how you all doing? Today it's time to do the Beatles albums rankings, the 13 Beatles studio albums. Technically there is only 12, but the UK EP of Magical Mystery Tour was released as a studio album with extra tracks in the US, and over the years has become an official Beatles studio album release, even though technically it wasn't in the UK in the time. So yeah, there's 13 to get through from least favourite to favourite. Listen, it's going to be highly controversial, I can tell you that before we even start. My rankings do not add up the same for the most part as a lot of other ranking videos that I've seen, but it's purely my opinion. I've based it on the enjoyment of the songs, the amount of times I can remember listening to those albums, and also um, just sheer love for those albums basically. And some are higher than what people would expect, and some are going to be a lot lower. I hope to give you a bit of a reasoning why some of the people's rankings that are higher than mine are lower in my order, so you'll get an understanding of where I'm coming from. But hey, there is no right or wrong. I know Beatles fans can be a precious mob at times, and just think that certain albums have to be number one or number two. Well, no, they don't. It's all opinion. No one's opinion is right and none is wrong. It's right to the person that's doing it. So let's start at number 13. There wouldn't be much debate with what album is at number 13, because just about everyone has this at number 13. We have Yellow Submarine, their 11th studio album, released in 1969. The reason this is at the bottom, I don't like the second half of the album. I'm not a classical music guy, and the whole second half is done by the George Martin Orchestra, which I don't really enjoy, to be honest with you. Also, Yellow Submarine was, 3 years old by this stage, the actual song itself. So it's not actually a new song been put on here. It's a song, obviously, for the movie. I'm not... Okay, only a northern song. Very average song. I get where George is coming from when he wrote it. Altogether now, pretty piss poor in my opinion. Hey Bulldog, yeah, not a bad little piano-based rocker. It's all too much. Can take or leave that one. And All You Need Is Love. Again, another song from a couple of years earlier in 1967. Fantastic single. So yeah, very average album for me. Comes in at number 13. But I have got actual rankings. I found a website called Chartmasters, and they give physical sales figures of singles, albums, EPs, etc. from artists. They also give the updated ones with streaming and that sort of stuff as well. But from the Chartmasters, so go on there if you have time. Look up most major artists. This album actually sold 4.2 million copies worldwide, physical copies, according to Chartmasters. At number 12 on my list, another one that wouldn't be too far wrong from most people's rankings. I have their fourth studio album, Beatles for Sale. Again, fairly weak. There's a lot of covers on here. Not that I have a problem with covers, but some are just pretty cringeworthy. Mr. Moonlight, I don't understand why that's even on here. It wouldn't even be a B-side of a Beatles single in my opinion. No Reply is really good. I'm a Loser is really good. Babies in Black is a cool little song. John's Rock and Roll Music, cover of Chuck Berry song, absolutely brilliant. I'll Follow the Song is a lovely little Paul ditty. Yeah, Kansas City, Words of Love. Yeah, Everybody's Trying to Be My Baby. They're okay songs. They're not great, but a lot of the Beatles new songs on here are just very average in my opinion. Average album. This one sold 5.6 million copies, physical copies worldwide. At number 11 on my list, we have their 13th and final studio album, Let It Be. I'm not showing vinyl albums, guys. They're all still in tubs at the moment. A lot of the Beatles ones, there's some up there behind me, but the Beatles ones are away. I have the first five on UK mono, handed down from my parents. Also have Abbey Road, also have Let It Be, and Lynn has Sergeant Pepper's, but we'll get to those ones soon. So yeah, Let It Be. This is a good album. It is a good solid album. Probably not as good. I think I would have preferred Abbey Road to be their final album release wise, but it wasn't to be. Two of Us is a really cool, almost Simon and Garfunkel type song. Dig a Pony, well, it's John doing what John does. Across the Universe is absolutely brilliant in my opinion. I Mean Mine, Dig It, can take or leave those. Let It Be, really good. Maggie May, just a little throwaway ditty in the middle there. I Got a Feeling, good song. One After 909 has a very Carl Perkins 1950s feel. Long and Winding Road, no need to explain that one. Or Get Back. For You Blue is a very good song as well. This album would come in at around 7.5 out of 10 from me, which is pretty good for an album that's this low in someone's rankings order. So yeah, just a really, really good album. It did sell 11.9 million copies worldwide. At number 10 on my list, I have their 6th studio album. This was released in 1965, Rubber Soul. This is great. This is a great album, but it's got to go somewhere. You know, I love all these albums from here on in, and the albums have to be put in some sort of rankings order. I'm sorry, but even with all these great songs on here, like Norwegian Wood, Nowhere Man, Michelle, In My Life, which is absolutely brilliant, and Run for Your Life, which I do love, great songs, they have to go somewhere in some ranking position. The only real letdown on this album for me is Drive My Car. I've never actually been a huge fan of that song, but yeah, this one comes in at just over 8 out of 10 if I had to be honest with you and mark it. Great album, just sorry that it has to be number 10. At number 9, this is the first one that people are probably going to go, whoa. 1967's Sgt. Pepper's ranks at number 9 for me. It's the 8th studio album. My partner Lynn does not like this album. She likes the title track, With a Little Help from My Friends, Lucy in the Sky, and When I'm 64, and I think that's about it. She may like A Day in the Life, I don't know. The problem I have with this album, I do love this album obviously. The problem I have with it, it sounds dated to me. It sounds stuck in 1967. We'll say The Style Council's Our Favourite Shop is stuck in 1985. This one is stuck in 1967. I'm not saying that in a negative way. It's very true to the era it was in. I just think some of these songs are quite weak. And without the technology and the studio trickery they were employing on this album, I don't think this album would be as revered as it is. That's, as I said, some of the songs are quite weak. Lovely Rita, for example, I'm not overly keen on that. I'm a big George Harrison fan with his sitar and all that stuff, but Within You Without You, as much as it fits on this album, I don't think it's a great George Harrison song. Fixing a Hole, it's not that great. It's not that great. Being for the benefit of Mr. Kite, I think they're weak songs, but in the concept of the overall album, I think they work really well, and with the studio trickery and technology. So that's why this one is at number 9. Sold 24.8 million physical copies. Number 8 on my list, we have their 5th studio album, 1965's Help. Sold 9.8 million copies. Absolutely brilliant. Help, The Night Before, You've Got to Hide Your Love Away, I Need You, Another Girl, You're Gonna Lose That Girl, Ticket to Ride, Act Naturally, Ringo doing country music, brilliant. It's Only Love, You Like Me Too Much, Tell Me What You See, I've Just Seen a Face, which I rate as a better acoustic number by Paul than Yesterday by a long shot. Yesterday is on here as well. It's probably I'm not keen on Yesterday, to be honest with you. So that is the weak link on this album for me. But yeah, just a really good album. Comes in number 8, sadly. 9.8 million copies sold. Another one that people are going to go, whoa, why isn't this a lot higher? So at number 7 on my list, we have their 7th studio album, 1966's Revolver. Great song. There's not anything I don't love on this album except one song. Tomorrow Never Knows. I have never got this song. I don't get what all the hype and, you know, everything, everyone's saying it's such a great song. I don't get it. I think it sounds messy. I think it sounds disjointed, and it's just not a great song lyrically or musically, in my opinion. Yeah, if you love it, that's fine. I'm sure there's Beatles songs that you might not like or love as much as I do, like Yellow Submarine, which is on this album, for example, or even Octopus's Garden. But each to their own. That is the weak link for this one. That's why this one is down so low. It may have been a couple of albums higher had I have loved Tomorrow Never Knows, or Tomorrow Never Knows hadn't have been on it. But nevertheless, great album. As someone said, I think it was Richard McCook, paperback writer. Could have and probably should have been on this album. I would have taken off Tomorrow Never Knows, had Rain as the A-side of a single, and had Tomorrow Never Knows as a B-side, or even a double A-side, just for that bit of psychedelia difference that would have hit the charts at the time. But it would have been so much better, I think, had Paperback Writer have been on here. Revolver. Next up for me at number 6, I have their 3rd studio album. This was released in 1964. Hard Day's Night. Sold 9.3 million copies. Brilliant, brilliant, brilliant. Every song is a Beatle original on here. You just can't knock any song. Hard Day's Night, Should Have Known Better, If I Fell, Happy Just to Dance With You, and I Love It. What a beautiful little Paul McCartney song. Again, another one I'd rate a lot higher than Yesterday. Can't Buy Me Love, what a great little rocker. I'll Cry Instead, Things We Said Today, Anytime at All, one of John's greatest vocal performances in my opinion. You Can't Do That, I'll Be Back, When I Get Home, Things We Said Today, absolutely brilliant. This is the Beatles I love, the happy poppy, happy-go-lucky band that, were just happy playing music without the stress of all the business crap that went on later in the late 60s and everything becoming too serious with psychedelia and everything. This is the band I love, as you'll see a bit later on as well. That album sold 9.3 million copies worldwide. At number 5 on my list, gonna surprise a lot of people yet again, I've got Abbey Road. This was their 12th studio album. It was released in 1969, obviously. It sold 26.7 million physical copies worldwide. I really love the whole album. Side 1 is absolutely brilliant. Love all those songs. I think they all work well together and bounce off each other. I even love Maxwell Silverhammer. I don't care what anyone says. I think that's a good song. But I do have moments where I don't like that song and I just skip it because it's cringeworthy at times. But overall, I listen to the whole album with it and it works well. The problem I really have with this album is side 2. The whole medley. The medley works well together. Don't get me wrong. I think it's brilliant. I think it's brilliant what Paul McCartney did to link all those songs into a medley that just flows. The problem is, if you listen to, say, Sun King on its own, or Polythene Pam, or any of them, Mean Mr. Mustard, because they just don't work as songs, as individual songs. They work as a medley beautifully, as individual songs that have a start and a finish. They don't work. They just don't sound complete, and they're not complete. They were half-baked songs, some of these songs that weren't finished, that were joined into a medley. So that is why this album is down as low as it is. Had all these songs have worked as individual songs where you could just listen to the songs as individuals and not as a whole piece of music, it probably would have been a bit higher. But that said, it is a fantastic album. As an album, listening as an album, it is brilliant. So at number 4 on my list, we go for their 10th studio album, 1968, White Album, or The Beatles. Brilliant. there's always been a lot of debate. Should it have been released as a single album and a couple of EPs? Should it have just been released as a single album? No, it shouldn't. It is a work as it is. Even Revolution number 9 being on there and Why Don't We Do It in the Road, they work well as part of the album. I usually skip Revolution number 9, to be honest with you. But to think that there's all these songs on one album and all the different sounds and styles on it, it just ebbs and flows from love to angst to, you know, beautiful love songs through this little storytelling songs like Bungalow Bill, for example. It's brilliant. And this does contain my favourite ever Beatles song of all time in While My Guitar Gently Weeps. So even if there was a couple of songs on here I wasn't keen on, it would get lifted into the rankings simply because of While My Guitar Gently Weeps. But great. It's a testament to the Beatles and how prolific they were around that period. Favourite songs on here for me, just in case anyone's wondering, would be obviously While My Guitar Gently Weeps, Julia. I absolutely love Julia, and I love Goodnight. I love the last song, Goodnight, which Ringo croons away there, that John wrote. I think it's brilliant. It's a great end to the album. Great stuff. This album would come in at just over 9 out of 10 for me, probably 9.25, 9.3 out of 10. Brilliant stuff, and the album sold 19 million physical copies worldwide. At number 3 on my list, we head back to their debut album from 1963, Please Please Me. Yes, I know there's covers on here. Okay, I get it. They're not all original Beatles songs, but just the flow of this album is just brilliant. Again, it shows the happy-go-lucky side of the band, when they were a band, when they were having fun, you know, without any studio trickery, just 4 guys in a studio with basically, you know, 4 instruments making some of the greatest rock and roll that has ever been laid down on tape. And to think they recorded this album in just a matter of hours, wasn't it? I think it's absolutely brilliant. And I would say there's not many albums with a better opening track on a debut album than I Saw Her Standing There. It's just absolutely brilliant. Just an absolute masterclass of an album. In fact, the weakest track on here is the debut single, Love Me Do, which is still a good song, but it's probably the weakest song on here for me. I love Anna. I love Misery. You know, Boys. I love Ringo rocking out the Boys. Chains. Love that song as well. Baby It's You. You know, I love all the cover versions on here. I think they're absolutely great. Great album. Great testament to the start of British rock and roll, in my opinion. At number 2 on my list, I have 1967's Magical Mystery Tour. As I said, it wasn't an album in the UK initially. It was just a 2-disc EP with bonus tracks on there. The bonus tracks: Hello Goodbye, Strawberry Fields Forever, Penny Lane, Baby You're a Rich Man, All You Need Is Love, which were on the American release of this, which has since become a standard Beatle album. When you're looking at the Magical Mystery Tour songs, Magical Mystery Tour, really good song. Fall on the Hill, brilliant. I love Flying. I think that's great. Blue Jay Way is just so emotive, has so much feel in it. Your Mother Should Know. Paul McCartney's used that style throughout his entire career, from that point right through his solo works. And I Am the Walrus. How can you not love that song? That was just, there's nothing else like that song in my opinion. Nothing else has ever sounded like that. And then of course you have all those other songs which were hit singles: Hello Goodbye, Strawberry Fields Forever, Penny Lane, All You Need Is Love. I mean, absolutely majestic stuff. This album grows and grows on me each year. I wasn't keen on it originally because I knew the EP and not all these bonus tracks, so it didn't feel right. It's like the Capitol albums, they didn't feel right to me, even though I've got the first 4 of them, because I'm so used to the UK releases. But yeah, great album, almost the perfect Beatle album in my opinion. Oh, but to think they had the whole Sgt. Pepper's album and this all in one year, how prolific was that? On a footnote to that, I have the original, which my parents gave me, the UK EP, with the story, all the pages there in the storybook. But there's an interesting thing to note, that on the first disc, I don't know if you can see that, I'll hold it up on the back of this. As you can see, it's been cut really rough on the machine. That sort of, see the edge there, just there, hasn't been cut correctly, and around that side as well, it's a bit off as well. But if you look, it says here, side 1, we have Magical Mystery Tour and Your Mother Should Know. There's one track on there. On side 2 it's supposed to be I Am the Walrus, and yet there's 2 tracks, side 1 and side 2. Either the labels are on the wrong way or it was printed on the wrong way. I've tried to ask a few people over the years what that is exactly worth, if there's, there was a lot of them made like that or not, and no one seems to be able to tell me any answers about it. So if you've got any answers about the printing on the wrong side of the Magical Mystery Tour first disc of the double EP, great, it'd be much appreciated. This obviously leaves my #1 Beatle album of all time. It doesn't mean it's the greatest Beatle album, it's my favourite Beatle album. It's their second album. It was released in 1963, 5.8 million copies sold, and it is with the Beatles. I used to love listening to this as a kid. You know, when I was 4 or 5, Mum would put it on the record player, and I'd just look at that cover, just the contrasts in everything, in the black and the white and the dark greys and everything. It was just brilliant. It's the first Beatle album I loved. I think I knew the words to every one of these songs by the time I was about 6 or 7. Great opening track here with It Won't Be Long, Lennon at his best on Roll Over Beethoven as well. It's just absolutely brilliant. I know there's some covers on here, but who doesn't remember, waiting for the postman to come and singing Please Mr. Postman, as the postman's driving up to your letterbox in your front door in the UK. I just think it's absolutely fabulous. There's not a weak link on this album in my opinion. Even the cover versions are just sung brilliantly. I know there's a lot of hate, I guess, or for want of a better word, people don't bother me. George Harrison is even dismissive of it, himself. I think it's absolutely great. I think it's a great song, and I think it fits well on the album. As I said, this is all about my favourite albums, not best albums. If it come down to best albums, Sgt. Pepper would be #1 without a doubt. It is worthy of being called the greatest album of all time because of the studio technology and everything it introduced to the recording processes. And Abbey Road would probably come a close second, but it's not. It's about me. It's about my favourite Beatles listening pleasure, and this is the #1 Beatle album of all time in my opinion. Anyway guys, sorry to bore you. I hate videos that go on longer than about 13-14 minutes at the most. I like to keep most of mine under 10 if possible. Sorry I've had to bore you for the last 23, almost 24 minutes now. But yeah, leave your comments in the section below. Anyway guys, stay safe, take care, all for now, catch you around, and bye.